Warning. This podcast may contain spoilers as well as coarse language. Viewer discretion is advised.
Live. There we go.
Live from Weeb Studios.
Fantastic.
Okay.
I can see you're enthusiastic about this, Mo.
Dude, it's been fucking... Okay, let's just get into it right now. This is Violet Everweekly, episode 6. I can't believe this has gone on this long, at least given the current nature of this show. This podcast, not my best idea, but you know what? Screw it. We're going to stick with it. I'm going to keep going. We're going to keep persevering, alright? Yeah, I'm Mozilla Fennekin. I run this shit. Joining me, the guy who actually runs the podcast group, Based Becker.
Hey, it's your boy.
Funk Master Bex, also his
Yes.
And two guests, both returning, both featured on the podcast recently in the past. Number one, Crispy.
Hey.
Hey. And also Taryn.
Hello.
Waterbender.
Yeah, that's me.
Uh-huh. And here we are. We're going to talk about Violet Evergarden episode 6. Thing about normally we've had this form to get guests on the show. This is going to be the last week. I want to get that out there. We've pretty much I wouldn't exactly say reached capacity, but I guess we've had enough applicants where I feel like we can pretty much get at least one or two for every episode from now on. So I don't know if by any chance this is your first time listening to it and you still haven't signed up and you want to, there you go. There's your final chance. It's going to be closed as of next episode, which is going to be in like 4 days or something, maybe even less. Oh no. And check out our fan Discord. We opened that too recently. It was really cool. Wait, not the fan Discord. Just a Discord.
It's a Discord for fans, but like, you know, we do other
It's
shit
kind
in
of...
there.
We have fans?
We have fans? Question mark,
have
question mark,
fans.
question.
Oh my gosh.
Oh god, this is
Yeah.
a disaster. Just like this show, am I right, guys?
Oh.
Ooh, what a zinger.
We
I actually
finally...
kind of like it.
After weeks of begging and pleading and saying, where's the light novel material? Why are we getting so many boring anime original episodes? We finally got an episode that actually adapts the light novel, and it's a monkey's paw, boys. It's a fucking monkey's paw, because it's pretty much more of the same, which isn't
I actually thought
terrible.
this was filler. Like, this was anime original. I legitimately...
Yeah.
And then I see that it's like... It's adapting the light novel. I'm like, well, it's not that different from the anime original shit. But...
I went in knowing it was light novel material, and then all of a sudden, it just, like, you could barely even tell. It was, I guess, slightly better, because you could see some sort of narrative arcs going through the interactions with Leon and Violet, and then they just kind of in fashion with the show, they just didn't really deliver on them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's kind of the problem with the whole show so far, is that it feels like they can do a lot more with the characters, but then they just kind of end in just one single episode.
Yeah, they skim the top and then just they don't dive deeper. And so you just kind of sit there and go, hey, this is pretty. It is just kind of sitting there, being pretty. That's about it.
Yeah, and speaking of this being like actually adapting from the light novels versus being, you know, not anime filler or whatever, I guess that's both a blessing and a curse. I don't know. Kyoto Animation is usually... They do a pretty good job at blending anime original content with their adaptations. They take a lot of liberties with their shows. So, yeah, I guess in a way, it's kind of impressive that they managed to make all of those anime original episodes, and then when they actually get to the light novel content, there's like no difference whatsoever. But the problem is, I personally want a little bit of a difference.
Yeah, well, and apparently they cut stuff from the chapter that they adapted.
Yippee.
Like they changed stuff. Like the entire, I mean, let's be real. It was super clear that Leon was interested, at the very least, in Violet in some way. And there was, it was leading towards some sort of confession or big emotional moment, which apparently happens in the light novel. And then it doesn't here. It ends with just kind of a self-explanatory declaration, I guess, that doesn't really, it feels disconnected. It's like, oh, that's what you got out of this. I thought you guys just kind of sat and watched a comet for a little bit. Great.
Yeah.
She ripped his heart.
Oh, no.
I mean,
my only thought would be how to apologize to you.
I mean, it's in the official Discord server, in the spoiler channel, there were a lot of really good points brought up. He just kind of disliked the dolls for whatever reason. He thought they were like money grubbing, like gold diggers or something, and that was never explained. And then I kind of get the overarching story of him seeing her as an orphan like him, going out, seeing the world and doing things and being inspired by that. But it kind of presented itself as the two of them just kind of spouting exposition about each other at each other, and no actual development, except there was, but we never saw it. And then all of a sudden it's resolved, I guess.
Yeah, I think you nailed it pretty well. Like, you can feel that there's a structure in place, but there's no transitions or any kind of meaningful build-up to where by the time it's over, you're like, well, okay, well, that's over with. Gotta go on to the next episodic story. I'm like, because in the beginning, they don't really present Leon with much character. In the beginning, he's anti-doll, but he just says, for no discernible reason, it just annoys me. And I go, okay, so you don't like dolls. Okay, that's it, cool. And then all of a sudden, Violet's introduced. He's like, oh, well, shit, Violet's cute. I guess it's time to fall in love and change my mind about dolls now. And I'm like, okay.
They did have that little scene with the first book where she kept up with him, I guess. But yeah, it's not like a swept me off my feet moment or anything.
Yeah, like it's nice, but it's just that you feel that there could have been a whole lot more grabbed out of it.
Also,
yeah.
He is a
Bare
bread
bones.
murderer. He is a bread murderer.
That poor piece of bread, man.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yo,
I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
the lunch
When he's
roof,
asking-
the lunch roof scene when they talk about their past, and she's like, "Oh, I used to be a soldier," and then he's like, "Oh, you're an ordinary girl," and then he's like, "Oh, do you want to go watch Ailey's comment, Mike? You gotta be careful with the copyright. You gotta watch out for Ailey's comment.
Haley's
you gotta watch
comment, not Haley's comment.
Yeah,
but
I'm
Ailey's
sorry. I'm
comment.
sorry, Taryn.
You gotta
Hang
be
on.
careful."
I'm sorry. We just monetized this channel, so we really gotta watch ourselves here. We don't want to lose that monetization.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
You know
get
YouTube
demonetized.
these days. Anyway, we're getting a bit too meta. But I think like this episode kind of encapsulates what people have an issue with Violet Evergarden. There's a lot of, you can tell that you can tell like the divide between how people view the show, because I mean, let's be clear, like with this episode, you can tell Violet has changed since the beginning. We know that like she's smiling, she's not acting such soldierly like. I can't think of a military like. She still has that kind of robotic-esque personality, but
yeah.
But she has a little bit more life to her, if that makes any sense. But the show doesn't really kind of explain how she got there. It's just kind of like, it feels like it's all offhand development.
There was one thing I kind of noticed and I actually kind of liked, and it's like, I forgot. It's like some of her old friends, like she meets up with some old friends and they like ask like how she's doing or if she's feeling all right or something. And then Violet does that thing that she did from last episode where she stretches out her face so that she's like smiling. And I think this time she actually did it as a joke, like understanding the joke of it now. And I don't know. I just think that's actually like a kind of genuine moment for her.
Yeah, that definitely came off that way, and it was just kind of like, when did that happen? It seems, even though she's still very stoic and very matter of fact, very blunt, she's kind of gotten used to her way of dealing with people and conversing with people, which was an interesting change. And I think it did actually help the episode. I'll be honest, I did kind of like this episode a little more because at least there were some hints of some sort of arc or development going on, but again, it just was not executed upon. And there are shows that do kind of shallower, fun, comfy stuff like this season's Yuru Camp or How to Keep a Mummy, but those shows really, really know what they're doing and go all in for it, where this show just kind of teased us with a deeper character drama and hasn't at all delivered on it.
Yeah, for a character-driven story, there hasn't been a whole lot of focus on, Violet, who's kind of the main character.
Well, the original novel, from what I've heard, was more from the perspective of the characters she meets and how they are affected by her, and it kind of builds her story through that, which is a really cool way to structure a novel. But I kind of get why they didn't want to do that originally, but now they kind of are, and now it's just kind of all mixed together and in just a muddy mess.
So you think like the two different directions the show's trying to tackle is kind of mixing it all up and it suffers as a result?
Oh, definitely. It's trying to be a few different things at the same time and just not really executing on any of them particularly well, and just kind of covering up with, hey, look at these pretty filtered visuals.
Oh yeah, speaking of which, that typewriting scene was like gorgeous, by the way. That short pan scene where they showed Tracer typing, that was nice.
Yeah, the visual presentation has been top notch from start to finish. It's just there's nothing underneath it.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm laughing at something else. I fucking posted a picture from Pop Team Epic, and my friend who hasn't seen it is like, what the fuck?
Oh yeah, new episode of that out today, right? I need to.
Oh my god, it's the best episode so far.
Really? That's good.
Pop Team Epic now.
It has a scene that is legitimately just the best scene in all of anime.
Oh,
I'm just gonna say that it involves a lot of paper.
Do you watch the full episodes or just the first halves?
This one I actually did watch the full episode because that scene was so good.
Okay, yeah, I've only been watching the first halves after episode 2. No, I did watch the full first two episodes. Yeah, I don't know. That's anyway. A conundrum. We could.
Anyway, Violet Evergarden.
Violet Evergarden.
I don't know where the fuck we were.
I ended off with just talking about the visual production, and that was about it.
Yeah, we're talking about visuals. We've talked about that a bit.
Really nothing else.
I don't really have anything new to say about that.
Can I? I'm just gonna bring up something. I think that I'm kind of in the middle of the camp here. I don't really love Violet Evergarden, but I'm not really bored with them. It's kind of it's okay. But I think one of the more interesting aspects thus far is I remember in the last podcast that was an hour long. Why it was an hour long? I didn't remember. Who was it? I think it was Sindra. I don't remember.
It was Sindri and Crit.
Yeah, Sindri. Yeah, Sindri brought up a point about how like with each episode they tackled some kind of like facet of love, like talking about episode 2 with the car girl or whatever her was, and like her love part, and then kind of like how love is kind of confusing, or how like you have to play the game. And then episode 3 was about the sister and brotherly love. Episode 4 was about the childhood family love, and then episode 5 was kind of like that fantasy true love. And then episode 6 I thought it kind of continued that, where it focuses more on like kind of the other's love, with kind of Leon's appreciation and like affection towards Violet, and which she shut him down hard when she said things about like, my only thought would be how to apologize to you. And you can kind of tell, like, when she talks in the monologue in the end, that she's starting to kind of... It's weird, because, like, it from all these, like, things she's saying, it should be obvious at this point that she loves him. But I guess she's kind of, like, hiding it, or I don't know.
Yeah, apparently in the source, though, there was an actual, like, confession and actual rejection, which created kind of a catharsis for Leon's character. And then they cut it! They cut it! Yay!
But I did kind of like how, Violet, like, she got something from it. She kind of, you kind of see in the end that she's smiling. Changed from the beginning of the episode, she's smiling. She's more, not necessarily enthusiastic, but she definitely has a little bit more livelihood to her from the beginning. Although, I think, as I said earlier, that a lot of it kind of feels offhand development more than something that we experience on hand. And that makes it hard for me, at least, to empathize and kind of say, wow, she's changed a lot.
Yeah, it's weird because watching the first couple of episodes, I definitely felt the show was kind of going for an observationalist style of presenting its characters, presenting its world, which I like. I like just kind of sitting back, setting the hypothetical camera down, and letting the story play out, and not having ridiculous inner monologues and exposition scenes. But now it's doing that in small spurts and kind of just skipping everything else. And that's not how you do observationalist storytelling. You need to show us stuff. But because you're not explaining things to us, you need to be better at showing things. I think this season, After the Rain, Koyame has been doing a pretty damn good job of that. And I kind of wish this show had really fully followed through on that.
Yeah, you see that in the discussion threads, like in the our anime thread. There's people who kind of don't know about what happened, but a lot of the other replies were kind of like, you kind of have to infer it. But that kind of begs the question of, should we as an audience be inferring a whole lot from this show? Is that what the show wants us to do, or is that just a downfall of what the show is trying to present itself to be?
I think it can be done well, but it has to be done right. And I don't think Violet Evergarden has been doing this type of show not tell right. There's too much left up in the air. I mean, you don't want to treat your audiences like idiots, but they're also not, savants either.
Yeah.
You
really don't have much to say for this episode, do you, Maz?
No, I take notes for, I've taken notes for every episode so far. This episode I have half a page. And none of it is fucking helpful. It's just a bunch of bullshit that I can barely even fucking read.
Here's what happened this week. Angry boy hates dolls. Angry boy falls in love with doll. Murders bread when asks out doll. They have nice time with stars. Stars inspire them. He goes out on journey now. Violet happy smile. That's about it.
So it's Kimi no Nawa.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
what we watch.
Hey man, I like Kimi no Nawa.
Kimi no Nawa is great. I would appreciate it if this show was more like Kimi no Nawa now that I think about it.
Based Shinkai. Yeah, this episode was directed by Yamada, was it? Or was it last episode?
That was last week. I don't know who directed this episode, actually.
Yeah, because that makes sense, though, because last episode was actually
the episode director
good.
Was Yoshiji Kigami. Ichiro
idea who that
Ichiro
is.
Miyoshi. I have no idea.
Jeez.
I have to look this up.
Not Yamada, and not Shinkai. So who cares?
No. It's someone made a comment. You know how that one user, was it DC Resistance, makes a comment every week about who did it?
Yeah.
It's somewhere near the bottom.
Yeah, I literally just looked that up too. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we've already kind of covered the main bulk of this. I guess one thing I'll comment on is I'm always interested in new things about the setting and the world, and even the job that these characters do. It just so far we've only seen them write letters, but in this we see that
books.
Yeah, they're making copies of books. I'm like, okay, that's useful. That's
okay.
Neat.
Yeah. Speaking of which, why do you need to hire auto memoir dolls when you just need typists, really, right?
Yeah,
you don't need people
auto memoir dolls are really, really fast typists.
Yeah,
but they're aren't they're more specified. I guess you can grab both. I was just thinking that they're more specified because they're usually meant to type more kind of emotional, fanciful prose rather than just copying stuff.
Well,
it works for Violet at least, so therefore it works for the whole thing.
But I don't know, because weird, because you brought up, it works for Violet. But the thing is, when she met with her not coworkers, her fellow peers, they're like, man, you got big. She's a big shot now, apparently. And I'm like, well, she's a big shot now. Oh, I didn't notice. That's kind of another issue I have. She's a big shot now, apparently, and I'm like, well, she doesn't really feel that way to me.
Yeah, well, because it's a lot of development apparently has taken place that we haven't seen.
Yeah, it's in between. I don't know. I guess she's a big shot typer.
I don't get to. Apparently, this was chapter 4 of the light novel. They're only adapting volume 1 because apparently volume 2 is horrible. But yeah, it's chapter fucking 4. Why in the world did you start the light novel material on chapter 4 and not, chapter 1?
Or wherever the fuck the cliffhanger from last week was.
Oh, God,
like that was apparently a scene from the novels, and they seem to make it a pretty big point about this one guy coming in being like, "Yo, what the fuck you doing?"
It was the Major's brother from the flashback in episode 1. Yeah,
or something. Edgy villain son is just what I call him. Episode just ended there.
Yeah,
and then so it's
a
like,
lot of people noted it, but apparently a lot of the staunch defenders of Kyo anime, they said somewhere along the lines of like, you can tell in the beginning of the episode she was all sad and questioning about it, and I kind of go, and that's why I kind of like in her dialogue in the night scene with Leon, she was like, "Am I really fit to have such a wonderful job?" To kind of. That's supposedly supposed to reference to when he said like, "You're an ordinary girl now," when he told her last episode. That's supposedly that's what.
All right, I can understand that one line, but it was also like one line.
Yeah, I thought it was like I understand the logic there, but it just feels really disjointed. If that makes any sense.
Just because it's there doesn't mean it works. You have to actually execute on it well, and it didn't. Ideas are only as great as their presentation. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Becker, you wanted to complain about this, didn't you?
The cliffhanger.
Oh, yeah. I don't know, like, why the fuck did they, like, talk about, or at least acknowledge the thing that happened in the last episode, unless they're going to do it later on, which is going to be, like, really weird. I don't know.
They kind of acknowledged it this episode, but they didn't really go into it.
Like, even just a little flashback to that scene would have been nice.
Yeah, I think that's what.
Or just doing like the beginning of the episode or something. I don't fucking know.
Oh yeah,
I don't know. It's so weird. Like, why would you have like a scene like that and then just like not really acknowledge it? It's so weird. This whole show is just kind of nah. I'm not a big fan.
I like it so far. It's not.
I'm starting to get a little bit more and more like impatient with the show because it's just doing like almost the same thing every episode, and I just don't care anymore personally. But
I feel like this episode was like doubly disappointing because of that ending. It just kind of made me think like, oh, okay, we're actually going to go somewhere now. We're going to
nope,
and then nope, same episode.
It's like I get the original novel is also, again, from what I've heard, told in non-chronological order, but then you start the anime original stuff mostly in chronological order, and now it's skipping around and like, make up your mind. You need to structure your damn show well.
I kind of feel bad now because we're all kind of harping on the show.
I think that's fine. Like, if the show's fucking up, we should call it out for fucking up.
Yeah, fuck you, show.
I love Kyoto Animation stuff, but I'm not gonna defend it if it's not doing well.
Well, we should probably note that in the episode discussion threads, because gee whiz, the discussion threads are kind of more divisive than ever now.
The top comment is someone who says, number one, am I the only one? No. I don't know. Anyone that like, there are people who do really like this show. They are like,
and that's fine. That's completely fine.
Yesterday, I think there was a thread. It might have been deleted or whatever, but someone was like, "Oh, every episode of Violet Evergarden makes me cry," and I'm like, I wish I could do that.
I want to cry. I really just want to feel emotions every now and then. I really wish I could.
Look, none of us hate this show. Keep in mind, I didn't start this podcast because I thought Violet Evergarden was gonna suck. I started the podcast because I legitimately thought it was going to be like the anime of the season to talk about, and it's just.
Well, it seemed like it was going to be a deeper character drama with stuff to talk about every week, but now it's just kind of like, oh yeah, this thing happened and Brett got murdered, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Like even with you can even like episodic driven stories like this aren't necessarily bad if executed well. They're actually really good, but there's not really a lot of substance within these episodic plots that kind of draw you in.
Yeah.
But I'm still okay with the show. I don't think it's like, I think it's because I've kind of tapered my expectations of the show from its insane hype. But I think it's an okay show. It's not bad. It's just not really fulfilling thus far. This show's really what the difference between the shows is going to definitely be in the end and how they kind of integrate these past stories into the finale. Finale.
I'll still finish it. Yeah, I'll still finish it. We'll see what happens, but right now it's just kind of a rock solid 6.
Yeah, that's. I don't know. I just find it interesting how like divisive. I'm getting a bit too meta here, but I just find it really interesting how divisive the threads are. With like in the first 4-ish hours when the threads posted, a lot of it's just filled with people who are like, "This show isn't really that good," and then the next 20 hours, it's people going like, "Am I the only one who sees no problems whatsoever?" And I'm like, let's see, 351 upvotes. I think you're not the only one here.
Isn't that what happened with Ancient Magus Bride as well? That's how I feel about it, though. Like, it was super hyped up. There are definitely people who love that show. And I'm sitting here watching this and going, it's pretty. Some of the episodes have some cool stuff, but it's kind of boring.
Unengaging.
Yeah.
I got into a discussion in the thread about how because apparently Violet Evergarden dropped almost 3/10 of a point since the beginning, which is quite a drop. But apparently Ancient Magus Bride had generally maintained the same levels for 18 episodes, and I
it's weird. Magus Bride is above Violet Evergarden now. I actually disagree. I think Magus Bride is worse.
Oh no, I think.
I think they're both kind of just in the same category of this could have been real nice, and it just kind of is, but not great at all. I'm watching it because it's just kind of there, and it's not pissing me off, so...
That's pretty much my opinion of Violet Evergarden in general. Like, I don't know. I mean, I might be a little biased against the show as well, because I'm kind of sitting here just like, come on, show, give me something to talk about. I wanted to do a podcast about this. I wanted to, try something new here, having a weekly discussion about it. And so when I get a pretty slow episode, I'm just like, oh man, this week is going to suck on the podcast. This is not a good episode. I'm so sorry, everyone. I ruined it.
But now you get different guests to say the same things in different ways every week.
Exactly.
Dude,
That's
this podcast is a reflection of the show itself. Like, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I was walking this week. I'm like, this feels like the exact same thing as last like 2 week the episode from 2 weeks ago, and I was like, oh, this is nice. That's okay. It's okay. There's not much to it. I actually thought last episode was pretty nice though. That was the princess one, I think. I think
I actually did like that one.
I think the prince and princess one was rather nice. It kind of showcased Violet's, like, you can tell Violet's starting to know her shit now.
It was definitely the best so far. I thought it was the best episode so far. It just still wasn't great.
Yeah. But yeah, just in general, I don't know. I think I've said this a lot, but this show is still just like a 6. Or maybe like a high 5 for me. So high 5.
Man, it's kind of amazing how different the threads are. Like, there's us here. We're like, it's okay, 5, 6-ish, and then all these other people in the other threads are like, we love the show.
It's a 10 out of 10.
And I'm like, are we the one who's wrong?
I don't know.
I don't know. Or is it the children? The children are on. It's always the children.
Either you really love KyoAni or you really hate KyoAni.
But, like, again, I love KyoAni, but I don't think this show is anything special. Your favorite studio is not going to be perfect.
No.
Case in point, according to Malgraph, Shaft is my favorite studio. That makes sense, because I've watched Madoka and Monogatari and Sangatsu and scored all of them high. But then Fate Extra Last Encore came out this season, and I'm not gonna staunchly defend it because Shaft is my favorite studio. I'm like, damn, Shaft, you fucked up.
That's really we're getting a bit too meta, but yeah, I think that's kind of one of the biggest issues.
You can't blindly follow a studio like that, because as a true fan, you got to stand up and say, hey, this is not the quality we want.
Yeah. That's all I have to say. Becker,
Yeah.
do you have anything to add?
No, not at all. Not really. It's the same shit.
If
every week.
you guys couldn't tell, we literally woke up Becker to do this episode because no one else.
I
was
literally
online.
woke up like an hour ago.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, I don't know.
Crispy, Taryn, any parting words?
Keep watching the show, I guess. It's kind of there and not offensive. Yay. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
It's completely okay. I think the epitome is it's okay.
It is okay.
Pleasant.
It's not like
fine.
we're like here's the thing, like we're all harping on it, but we're not harping on it because we hate the show. We just really expect it, and we really hope that it could execute what it wants to be well, but it
I feel
hasn't.
like I'm the
done
one
that.
who dislikes it the most in this, but only because I'm just growing really impatient with the show, and it's just like really, nah.
Well, as the defenders will say, it's because you're expecting something that the show isn't. You know, it's clearly your fault.
Look,
Oh,
look,
God.
look. Violet Evergarden. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed. And that's it for Violet Everweekly episode 6. Thank you everyone for listening or watching. Once again, thank you guys for being on the episode. Subscribe to the channel, follow us on Twitter at Tokyo Podfathers. Check out the Discord, now
description.
publicly available in the description. And if you haven't listened to the past episodes of the podcast,
We just
there's a
put out our
playlist.
fucking Q&A episode, and it's really dank. And
It
you
is
can
my
see our
favorite
face
episode of this podcast's
It's the-
history.
of podcast.
It is
Oh,
literally
God.
the
It
podcast.
comes with face reveals, guys. You should
It's
watch
pretty
it.
good, yeah.
And Fate.
Yeah,
Oh, except
Fate is
yeah,
an
Fate.
apple, actually. Fate is an
Yeah.
apple.
I'm disappointed in you, Fate.
Yeah, same.
Although he's probably not going to watch it. Or
I'm
is
not
he?
mad. I'm just disappointed.
There we go.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Okay.
All right.